Welcome back to the Loose and Groovy Baseball Show, episode number 13. Today is December 19th. Yeah, 19th. It's been a few weeks since me and Parker have been on the podcast, but we've both been pretty busy just wrapping up our semester at school, heading back home and all the things. So that's why we're remote again today. We're both back at home, but it's been a very busy free agency. I'm sure you guys have all seen the moves, along with a lot of big trades happening as well. And yeah, Parker, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. It's been nice to get a little break from college. Spend some time with the family. Baseball, in terms of baseball, it's getting super exciting. Um, what the nice part is we're only about a third of the way into all the action, whether it's trades or free agency. So there's going to be a lot more in the future, and there's a lot right now. So it's super fun.
Absolutely. And the big thing we have going on right now with our show is our free agency pick'em. This has been super fun to keep up with and do. If you guys don't know, last episode, me and Parker, I think we picked it was 15 free agents and five trades that we thought were going to happen. And we're doing a point system for the length, the contract length, if we guessed the team correctly, if the player was even traded. And that's been fun to keep up with. Right now, it's 65 to 20. I've taken a bit of an early lead here. I've had some big picks with the Soto and Crochet trade. But like Parker said, still a long way to go. So if you guys want to keep up with that, I usually do all of that on our Instagram and the updates and everything. So you guys can keep it up with it there. And also be sure to listen to our last episode for our full picks and reasoning. And then the rules are also going to be explained there as well as on Instagram. So we got that going on. And today's episode, we're going to be going through some of the big moves. In the past 2 weeks, we haven't been recording. There's been a lot that's been going on. And that's why we're here today. We're going to be talking about the big free agent moves. We kind of have I would say 10 big free agent signings, and then Parker's going to talk a bit about the Tigers, and I'll talk a bit about the White Sox just because those are our teams. And then looks like we have six trades that we're going to go through as well. So yeah, we're pretty excited to just dive right into this. And I guess I can kick it off for us with our first one. And it would be a crime not to put this one as the first one we talk about. But Juan Soto officially made his decision. He's going to be a New York Met for 15 years, $765 million. It's a really big number. And the other thing I guess I'll mention is we're going to be doing a scale out of 10 for the team fit and the contract length or the contract as a whole, what we think, how good it is. And then for the trades, we're just going to do a letter grade for both sides. So yeah, I'll just give it over to you, Parker, if you want to start with your kind of little opinion on this one.
Yeah, so I'm gonna break down the contract on this one a little more because there's quite a bit to it because this is the biggest contract in all sports and the entire world, so it's kind of crazy. But so 15 years, 765 mil, which is a 51 AAV. And the Yankees offer 16 years, 760 mil, which I don't know. I want to hear what you think about this, but that kind of tells me that um like the place didn't really matter. Like he wasn't that attached to the Yankees, considering I know it's still an extra year, but there's only a 5 mil difference there. So I feel like money was obviously like 95% of his decision.
Oh, yeah. I 100% think so. And I think it also is, well, the Yankees were his third team in the past, I don't even know, what, 3 or 4 years because
Yeah.
the Padres, Nats, and then the Yankees, of course. Um, yeah, I don't think he really felt any kind of emotional tie there. Maybe if they won the World Series, it could be a
Yeah,
little
that's
different.
true.
Um, no, yeah, I think you're right though, with the money and incentives and, all the thing that goes into that. Um, I would also say a big thing with players now, and it's still New York, so not much change there with in
Yeah.
terms of city living, whatever. Um, I think player development is also a big thing they're looking at now, as well as teammates, like who you're playing with. I you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Soto and Lindor are like really good friends.
Yeah, they're close.
So I think that helped too. I don't know. There's probably a lot of different things that factored into his decision.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the Mets were the best suitors here, offered him the most money, and I think that's just kind of how it worked out. Um, I mean, for the team fit, I don't really like. I'm not going to say anything lower than a 10. I mean, it's Juan
Yeah.
Soto, so I think you would agree with that probably.
Yeah, I 100% say 10 out of 10. I mean, with his caliber, you can't really say anything else, at least for the time being right now. Before we get into the contract ratings, I'll break it down even more. So, like I said, 15 years, 765 mil. Um, but also, so after 5 years, he has a club or a player option, right? So he can either enter free agency, um, or stay with the Mets. And if he chooses to stay with the team, that he gets a 4 mil per year increase. So
Wow.
starting in 2029, he'd get 55 mil a year, which would make the contract total 805 mil total for the entire contract. So if he stays with the Mets, it's 805 pretty much. That's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
that's kind of crazy to think about.
Yep.
My contract rating, I set a 3. I mean, I don't know. You can kind of talk about this. It's so tough, dude. This is so much money, and you look at all these other guys, and like, there's. I know the Yankees made it to the World Series, but I still see like quite a bit of holes that they should be filling in with more than one guy, and not one guy's not going to completely um like be a safety blanket
Yeah.
for them and like cover up all these holes. So kind of scares me, but
Yeah. So the the money amount doesn't concern me from like a Mets perspective, like because the Mets, like we've talked about, the money doesn't really it's not really an issue for them.
yeah,
I totally get what you're saying though about I mean to some extent maybe it is because you're paying this guy a lot of money and now we're seeing the Yankees getting a bunch of other good players and the Mets have too, but I agree with you that it is a lot of money for one player, and the thing to me, I don't think he should be paid more than Shohei Ohtani. I think Ohtani is even still on another planet than Juan Soto, and the fact that he could be making $100 million more than him is kind of insane to me.
yeah,
Um, and I get it; he's really young. He still is going to play for a really long time, and I know that's a factor, but still 765 million and what like you were saying upwards of 8 is pretty brutal. But I will say I appreciate, the Mets said from the beginning they were going to go out, they were going to get him, they were going to spend as much money as possible and they did. So I mean they got it done and I think I applaud them for that. I think I'll give it a 5 just because I'm like 50-50 on it because I see the
yeah.
good, but I also see the bad in it, I guess. So it all in all, I mean Juan Soto's a Met, so I guess that's kind of all you have to say to that. But yeah, I definitely think it's hard to call it an overpay because it's Juan Soto, but I
Yeah.
think if there was one, it might be this one. So
The way I kind of see it is so either way, a player of his caliber and his age, no matter what, he's going to want a contract, let's say between 12 and 16 years.
hmm
And he's going to make between like 45 and 55 mil a year. The way I see it is the Mets, they understand that in 10 years he's almost guaranteed to be a DH and he might not be able to move too much because he'll be 36. And it's 15 years, so they still got 5 more years after that. I really see it as them, the contract they're just giving to Soto for the first like 7 years. Like after that 7 years, they understand that they're gonna be paying him way too much, but they're kind of banking on in the first, let's say 5 to 8 years that
that
he's gonna bring a championship to them.
so that they kind of like in the window here, and
Yeah,
then the 7 years after is just what null and void or
yeah.
extra, or whatever.
Because he either way he's gonna get that huge contract. So that's the risk you gotta take. You can't give him an 8 year contract unless you pay him a
Right.
like
A
90
lot of
million a
yeah,
year.
way too
So
much.
it's that's kind of the way I see it. Is that worth it? I don't really know that, but like you said, money's not really an issue to them.
Yeah.
But it's still the fact that they could spread that money elsewhere.
hmm
So yeah, 3 out of 10, 5 out of 10. We'll see. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm almost 100%. If he stays like 90% healthy, that he will be the best hitter in the next 5 years.
hmm
So take that how you want. But after that, with his mobility and stuff, it kind of worries me. So
Yeah, we shall see. We'll move on to the next guy, though. So this was, I mean, I guess in response to the Soto signing, the Yankees have been pretty active, and this was one of their big gets. Max Fried signed to the Yankees on an 8-year, $218 million deal for 27 and a quarter AAV here. Um, I love the player. I don't love the contract. It's a lot of money for Max Fried. And not to discredit Max at all, he's a really good pitcher and one of the more, I guess you could say, sturdy guys. I know he's had some stints on the IL, but he pitches, upwards of 150 innings every season, up 170 maybe.
hmm
And the numbers are really good too. He's just consistently, he's going to go out there, he's going to throw good. And the Yankees needed a lefty here, and I think Fried fits the bill perfectly. This is the biggest contract offered for a left-handed pitcher, and like, sign and everything too. Um, and when you put that into perspective for Max Fried, it's kind of like I don't know. But $218 million is a lot, and I don't know Max Fried's age off the top of my head.
He is
30. He's 30.
he'll be 31 in like 30
Oh yeah.
days,
Yeah, you're
20
right.
days.
So by the end of the deal, he'll probably be almost 40, which is pretty
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's really good for right now. I I don't think anybody was really expecting an 8-year contract. That's a really long time to hold on to Freed. What do you think?
I completely agree. Fit rating, I said 9 out of 10, maybe even like 10 out of 10. He's been amazing. He's been honestly one of the most underrated players, maybe the most underrated pitcher in the last like 10 years since he's entered the league. He's only had one season with an ERA above 3.25. One season. I guess besides his rookie year, but he didn't pitch much there. But he's just been super, super consistent the past like 4 years or 5 years, 2.25, 3.04, 2.48, 2.55, 3.25 ERA. So super good in that aspect, but I completely agree. I would have much rather liked to see a 5 years, 4 year, 6 year contract at the most. I think 8 is way too many years. Like I think five for like 150 or 155 would have been better, just up the AAV a little bit. So that kind of scares me, especially with all the injuries that are happening now in the league. So contract rating, I said 4 out of 10. Yeah, I agree. It's a lot, but it will be very good to take some pressure off Garrett Cole and that the top of the rotation, and then this makes the rotation look really good in my opinion. So
Yeah, I think for fit, I would say I'd say 10 easy. I think it was either this guy or like a Corbin Burns or something, and
yeah,
I don't Fried is totally good here, even yeah, even if it wasn't Burns. Contract, I think I'd say a 3. I'm not a fan of it at all, really, but I think this could be a similar situation what you were saying about Soto with it, you wanted to offer him more like a longer length, so you did get
hmm
him, but you're only really planning on him being useful for like, 3, 4, 5 years maybe. But you had to
yeah,
throw in 8 years so that you actually did get him for those first 3 to 5
that's
years.
true.
So that could be another scenario here where that was just the best offer. That was the offer they needed to make to go out and get him.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like
you can go.
with
Yeah.
Soto, that argument of like the first 5 years to 8 years, I feel like for Freed though, wouldn't it have been a lot easier to just up the AAV and give him 5? Like I feel like that would have been smarter in
And
this.
for the Yankees, I don't know because just looking at some of the other guys they've already gone and got, I think they want to keep spending money, and so maybe they saw an opportunity to save a little bit here, but just extend the length.
Okay.
I think that would have been fine though. But does it also hurt you to just give them a few more years and say, hey, we'll see how you are when you're 40. We're not really worried about that. We're more worried about these first 5 to 6 years. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think either way they went about it, it wouldn't have been terrible. And so even now, maybe 8 years isn't that bad, but it is kind of all depending on what the Yankees were thinking with that. Um, but I think that would have been fine. But seeing now as they got in Bellinger, and then they also
Mhm.
got uh, why am I blanking?
Devin Williams.
Yeah, Devin Williams. It's kind of like, okay, maybe they're trying to savor some, and they could definitely still be in contention for other guys too.
Yeah, for sure.
So moving on, we'll go to the Giants. Getting a big free agent signing here. Willie Adames is heading over to San Francisco for 7 years, $182 million. I'll let you get us started on this one if you want.
Yeah, so that's 26 AAV for the Giants. Fit rating, again, with a lot of these good players, you're going to see the fit ratings are very high because these guys are like such high
Good.
caliber that it's
Yeah.
hard to not have a fit on a team. So I said 9 out of 10. He had a great year last year, 32 home runs, 112 RBIs with a 794 OPS. The year before that, so 2023, 94 OPS plus, and then 110 the year before. So, kind of been like above average, but the power is way above average. And the Giants that's like one of their biggest problems is they need power. I saw this stat, I don't know off the top of my head, but it was like in the past like 10 years or something, there's been like only one Giants player with more than like 30 home runs or like a certain home run plateau. So they've always lacked the home run power. So I think it'd be huge, especially now that they're likely losing Hassan Kim. Almost guaranteed now, I guess, with Willie Adames, but
Uh,
um, super smart in my opinion. Contract rating, I said 7 out of 10. Kind of indifferent about this. I think it's more good than bad. He's not as old. He's only 29 years old, so that's a plus there. Usually once the guys hit 30, it starts to kind of worry me, but 26 AAV is not terrible. I know Willie, he just came off his best year, so that's going to get him the most money. But yeah, I mean, with how much guys are making nowadays, that's kind of what you got to pay. So I really can't complain with it.
yeah, I will say, so I live near Milwaukee and I've been to a lot of Brewers games over the past 2 or 3 years. And Milwaukee fell in love with Willie Adames. His character is great, really good personality. And like even before I really got into baseball, I just knew who Willie Adames was because he was a big deal in Milwaukee, which is
Mhm.
I think pretty cool for him to have that kind of thing. And I know everybody in Milwaukee is gonna be pretty sad to see him leave, and I think he is too. I couldn't agree with more what you said. I think it's a really good addition for the Giants. They get power at shortstop, which is awesome. And I don't mind the contract either. I think 7 years is fine. And 26 AAV, I also think is worth it for Willie Adames. And like you were saying, coming off his best season last year, it definitely helps that up a lot. Um, the other thing I do want to mention is it's a good sign for Giants fans with the addition or bringing in Buster Posey to help out and kind
Mhm.
of change a narrative from what I've learned of the Giants are always in on guys, but they don't really sign anybody. It's cool to see them go out and actually get a big star now. And I think this is a good sign for future Giants years where, maybe they will always be in on these big names and you have to actually start to seriously consider them as contenders for a lot of big targets. And I think they could still go on definitely for the rest of this offseason, make people think that you actually are like a big market team and convince them that you're in for like a season, and stop kind of hanging around that 80 win total, which is kind of what they've been doing for the past couple of years. So I think all around it's a really great move. And I mean, I guess for the fit, I'll just say 10 as well. And then the contract, I'm going to go 8 for that too. I think all around it's a really, really good move. So,
Yeah, with like you were talking about with the Giants, how this is kind of like turn the page with Buster Posey and like how, like you said, there's certain teams that they always seem to be in it, kind of similar to like the Cubs and like the Blue Jays, but they never actually like pull the trigger, and like hang with the big dogs.
yeah.
So I'm gonna say this right now. I'm very confident, especially after this, like how they're showing initiative to like get these guys with my pick from the free agency pick 'em of Corbin Burns going to the Giants. I really think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, that I think you're definitely on the right track with that. And I would say counter to that, I'm a little nervous about mine because I am going to Boston, and now that they got Crochet, I still think it'd be fine. You get a big, really strong one too. But
Yep.
yeah, I definitely think it's starting to favor you more. And if they got Corbin too, that would be really, really exciting for them. So yeah, definitely something to look forward to for that.
Mhm.
Um, all right, moving on. We'll go to Blake Snell. He signed to the Dodgers on a 5-year, $182 million deal. That was a around 36 AAV. Snell was one of the big targets heading into this offseason. He signed super early, and the Dodgers get another, ace to the rotation. Um, I don't have much here. Snell's really good. We all know that. I think the fit is, I mean, I'm still gonna say 10 just because it's Blake Snell. I would maybe downgrade it like 1 or 2 points just because the Dodgers maybe didn't need a starting pitcher. But I think they have filled holes everywhere else, and not that there is many holes either, but I think this is perfect. Um, their rotation, like I've said, it's now, Tyler Glasnow when he comes back, Yamamoto, Otani, Blake Snell, Tony Gonsolin. Like it's just super impressive and it gets better here. The contract. I'd say maybe a 7. I do like the shorter length here for Snell. Only 5 years is a nice change of pace from what we have been already talking about. 36 AAV is definitely pretty high, but again, the Dodgers' money isn't going to be on their top of their concerns, especially with all the deferrals they're doing. Um, Yeah, I don't have much else to say on this one, but I'll give it over to you.
So honestly, I kind of disagree with most of that. I'm gonna say in terms of fit, I think the fit is great just because, like you said, the Dodgers don't need starting pitchers. I think it's the opposite because the Dodgers, especially with like certain guys like May, I guess everybody, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Otani, May, Gonsolin, they're all constantly getting injured. And a lot of these injuries are like huge injuries that are getting these guys out for the whole year. So to have that depth of that six-man rotation and then they have some other guys that can fill in too, I think that's huge. Um, so I think the fit is perfect in terms of that, just because if one of these guys goes down in the season for with a season and an injury, which at this point it's more than likely with the past like few years that we've seen with the Dodgers, and the injury history for a lot of these guys, I think that'd be huge. Um, in terms of contract, I didn't even realize, I just looked it up, but he's 32 years old, so that scares me a lot. I know 5 years isn't that much, and I know we were talking about Freed, but Freed is also um 2 years younger or a year younger than Blake Snell. So that it kind of makes me think that this is an overpay because 36.4 AAV is a lot of money for Blake Snell, especially a guy that he's he typically goes out and pitches like 5 or 6 innings because he has high walk rate, high strikeout rates that leads to a lot of pitches. So he doesn't really go deep into games. Um, Still like a phenomenal pitcher, and like every time in the second half he's amazing, which is good because I guess that can continue into the playoffs. So I give the contract a 4 out of 10. I don't know. I feel like this is one of the ones you just have to wait and see how it plays out because there's no doubt in my mind that the injuries are going to hit the Dodgers again, and this is going to turn out to be pretty good for them. So it's tough for me to kind of gauge everything, but yeah,
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that and it being tough to gauge. I do want to push back a little bit on I don't I not that you said it wasn't worth it, but I Blake Snell I think is one of the best pitchers in the league. Um and I think the money is worth it. So I mean just the past 3 seasons looking at his time split between San Diego and New York, 3.38 and 22. He had 2.25 in 2023 and I think that did he win the Cy Young that year?
he did, yes.
Okay. And then
No
last year
All-Star. He got Cy Young, which is crazy.
he had no All-Star.
Yeah, well, it's that second half Snell. The first
Yeah.
half he wasn't great, and then
And same thing this year. First half he really struggled, then he had a really strong second half. He finished with a 3.12 and 104 innings. He also threw a no-hitter during the season as well. This past season definitely helped him out in getting a big contract here, but I think he's been one of the best pitchers in the league, and many people will argue that when Snell is at his best, he's there's nobody better than him in MLB. And I do get your point with he doesn't a lot of walks, a lot of strikeouts at the same time, so he doesn't go super deep. But at the same time, I think the Dodgers have enough guys in there where they don't need to worry about Snell being a frontline guy.
that's
I
true.
think you can assign other guys to that role, and then Snell's a really good 5, 6 inning guy.
Yeah.
But either way, I think we both kind of know it's a really good get for the Dodgers, even if we disagree on some of the specifics of it. So.
Yeah, I mean, if Snell in the playoffs, if Snell goes 5 shutout innings like he usually does, and then they hand it over to the Dodger bullpen, I mean, you can't really complain with that. So
Yeah.
it can turn out to be really good for them, honestly.
100%. All right, moving on. We'll go to Texas, where Nathan Eovaldi re-signs with the Rangers on a 3-year, $75 million deal. I don't know if you have much to say on this one. This is another one where I am in. It's a great deal, great player. He's been really good. I think the fit is perfect again. He's an experienced pitcher, can aid in some of the development with the young arms Texas have coming up with Leiter and Kumar Rocker. 25 AAV, I don't think is bad at all. He's been so consistent, so good. And I think the Rangers are definitely looking for a bounce back year, and I think Eovaldi can definitely be at the front of that. So I'm gonna go 9 for the fit, and I think the contract's perfect. So I'm gonna go for a 10, and I don't have much else to say on that other than so.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same boat. I said fit rating 8 out of 10, like you said, to be like a veteran presence for those young guys. Um, he seems like he really knows what he's doing. I've seen some interviews with him, so he's super smart. And to like help those young guys out is always massive. I think it's more valuable than the fans kind of think it is because like we're not in the clubhouse obviously, but you'll hear some of these young guys talk about like how much these mentors mean to them and how much they've learned from them. They might even like pick up like a pitch from them. Like sometimes like Darvish would teach like the younger guys on his old Texas squads like a new pitch, and then nobody really knew that, but going into their next seasons, that pitch was like huge for them. So, I agree. Um, Again, with the age though, he's going into age 35 season. So is 25 a, a little bit too much to me? Yes. So I said seven. I still think it's a decent contract just because like what you said with the consistency. This past 5 years, and these are all in his age 30 seasons. 3.72, 3.75, 3.87, 3.63, and 3.8. And he's pitched at least 100 innings in all those besides the COVID years. So you can't really go against that. The numbers, they don't lie. And if he shows no signs of regression, which he's really not, yeah, pay him, honestly.
And I think even if he does show a little bit of aggression, the highest his ERA has been was a 4.76 in 2016. I don't see it ballooning up to like something like anything higher than like a 4.5 maybe.
Yeah.
I think 3 more seasons you can expect a decent amount of like quality from Eovaldi. And even if that last season, he's getting to his he's starting to decline, I still think he'll be a valuable guy to have around a clubhouse at the very least. And he can still pitch and still pitch probably a good amount of innings for the Rangers. So overall, a good signing. I think we're both in agreement on that.
Mhm.
The next one we got is Tyler O'Neill to the Orioles. This is one we were both pretty interested to see where he ended up at. So it's a 3-year deal for $49.5 million with a 16.5 AAV. I'll let you get us started on this one if you got something.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I absolutely love this deal. I said fit rating 9 out of 10. I think he's going to be great to throw into there, especially considering they're likely going to lose, almost guaranteed going to lose Santander. Right now, their outfield looks like O'Neill, Cowser, and Mullins. So that boosts their outfield quite a bit. Um, I don't know. We've talked about this a lot of times before, and I'm usually more on the platoon side. So I don't know what they're going to do in terms of platoon with like O'Hearn and stuff. But O'Hearn's on the infield, so I guess that'll probably be tough for them to navigate with that. But yeah, I think the fit is 9 out of 10. Contract, I think it's 10 out of 10. 16.5 per year for 3 years for Tyler O'Neill. I think that's an absolute steal, especially with the market nowadays. And another thing that usually scares me is when guys have a good contract year and then um, the previous years they didn't really show much until that contract year. But you look at this year, 31 home runs with an 847 OPS, and then he's done it before. In 2021, he had 34 bombs with a 912 OPS. So we know this wasn't just like a fluke year. So overall, I think this is a phenomenal trade for the Orioles.
Yeah, it is
Or
interesting.
not trade, free
Yeah,
agency, sorry.
yeah, you're good. Um, he had kind of it to me it seemed like a change of scenery kind of trade going from St. Louis to Boston, and it worked out perfectly for him. Because after that 2021 season, he did struggle quite a bit, to be honest with you. Average was down, slug was down, like everything from that 2021 season. But it was definitely good to see he found some of that again here in 2024. And he got awarded with a pretty decent contract here. Um, for the contract, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think this is super like I don't want to say low risk, but 3 years and only at 16 and a half for what Tyler O'Neill could be, I think is perfect. I I think it's like even if he doesn't exceed expectations or doesn't meet them, I think you're still okay here. And if you're signing this and he does exceed expectations, it's going to be a really, really good deal for Baltimore. Um, I don't think you'll have any problems hitting in Camden. They actually moved the left field wall up closer this year, so I think that'll help him also because he does pull the ball a lot. Yeah, I'm excited to watch him there. Not sure again with Platoon if he's going to play every day. We obviously know he
Mhm.
crushes lefties, but this is kind of your Santander replacement, and you get him at a much, much cheaper rate. And maybe this will allow him to go and get some other guys. They did sign that Japanese pitcher, which we don't have to talk really much about that. He's kind of an old guy from I think it's Japan. Uh, I think he's like 35, but he was really good over there in the MPV. So it's kind of I don't know, you get him and it's like kind of weird. I don't know. The Orioles are confusing to me. We'll see what they do for the rest of the offseason, but for this deal, I think the fit is probably 8 out of 10. I think they have no problem squeezing him in, and I do love the contract 10 out of 10, so I think I'll agree with you on that.
Mhm.
All things considered, a really good move for Baltimore, and I'm excited to watch him there next season. Next up, we're going to have Shane Bieber to the Guardians. This was one we talked about on our AL Central preview. We weren't really sure what they were going to do here or if he would even stay in Cleveland, but he does stay in Cleveland. 2 years, 26 million, and I'll let you kind of talk about some of the intricates of that though also.
Yeah, so 2 years, 26 million, 10 million for the first year, and then a player option for the second year of 16 mil. This fit rating, 10 out of 10. Shane Bieber, I think he's meant to be in a Guardians uniform. Every year he's been like amazing with them. Whenever he's on the mound, he's fantastic. In terms of contract, I said 5 out of 10 just because of the fact that actually I'll say 6 out of 10. It scares me because we talked about this before, but he's going to be back. I looked it up several months into the 2025 year, so maybe let's say like halfway through the season is when he's returning. So I guess it's important to get him for the last half is obviously the most important because going to the playoffs and everything. But with how tight this division is and how close it's going to be with the playoff race, they need him all they can get. So 10 mil, it's still probably worth it for him, especially considering, like I said, he's always good when he's on the mound. And then that player option, I don't like player options at all. I think it puts the team in a terrible spot because the player either does good, um, and they decline the contract, and then you lose out on your player, or the player does bad, and then you have to pay him money when they don't really deserve it the next year. So 6 out of 10 contract fit, amazing. Shane Bieber, like I said, should be in a Guardians uniform.
Yeah, it is interesting. There's a lot of ripples to this, thinking about the injury, but what he was before, and you're kind of nervous about giving him a long-term deal, but you want him to stay. And I think that's probably why he got the player contract, is they wanted him in 2025. And it could work out really well if he comes back halfway through and kind of helps that postseason push and then into the playoffs. If we get the Bieber that, we know is who he is when he's healthy. I think the fit, I agree with you, 10 out of 10. Bieber in a Guardians uniform, that's kind of how it's meant to be, probably. Contract, I do like it, to be honest with you. I don't really think, like, I don't totally disagree with the player option, especially if that is what it was to get him here.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that Bieber signed with Cleveland in the first place makes me think he wants to be here. Because I would be certain he would have gotten more money if he went somewhere else, maybe not. Um, but I have a feeling if he does do good, they make another postseason push. I would think he would take that player option and stay with the team. I don't know though. Obviously, that's a long way away. I'll go 8 out of 10 for the contract. I don't hate it. It's a small deal, pretty low risk for the Guardians. If it doesn't work out, he leaves. That's fine. So I'm not in total disagreement with that one there. So moving on again, we're gonna jump to Oakland or Sacramento now, or Las Vegas, whichever one you want to call it. But this is Luis Severino. Gives the A's their biggest contract in team history. He signed to a 3 year, $67 million deal for 23 AAV. Now this one, I, I don't really know how I feel about this one. The fact that the A's are convincing these players to come to Sacramento and play in front of 12,000 fans is pretty impressive to me. The general belief right now is a big part of their pitch is convincing guys that or players that they're going to be spenders in the next, couple of years. They're going to be building a good team. They have a really good core that is starting to kind of develop, and this could be a year where they make a pretty serious jump in terms of wins and competitiveness. Luis Severino was one of them. Jeffrey Springs they traded for, so you can kind of start to see something happening here and very uncharacteristic moves of the A's of, being contenders in free agents. I've seen multiple reports of them also being in on a lot of big free agents. So it is interesting. I think the fit, I don't have any problems with the fit. I have more problems with Severino as the guy they went and got. I like him, but it was one good season last year with the Mets, and he's kind of been rocky ever since that or before that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of risk with taking that. And 23 AAV for a player like that is kind of, maybe, I don't know, but the starting pitcher market, like we've talked about, is very high. So I do get a little nervous about that. The contract, I'd also probably give it like a 4. I'm not too high on it. I think this speaks more to the A's of going out and being, contenders and trying to start to turn the tide of what Oakland usually does. So I do like that more, but the player that they did it with, I'm not necessarily so sure on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not really a huge fan of it. The A's trying to convince guys and trying to really convince like the fans and just the MLB like atmosphere in general that they're going to be big spenders. I like that part of it. I do think they're at least a year away from going out and doing things like this, especially with a guy that's 31 and has been this inconsistent, like you said. Like in 2023, 89 innings, 6.65 ERA, like that's super worrisome to me. I know he could have found something, but he had something before with the Yankees. He was great, and then he went down, and now he's gotten better. And even last year, 3.91 ERA, that's not like off the charts number. That's above average, really. So fit, I said 5 out of 10. I think they gotta wait a little bit. And if they're gonna do this, I think they gotta do it on a guy that's like 28 or 29, just because that opens that window up a little more. In 3 years for 22, a little over 22 a year, I also think that's too much. So I said 5 out of 10 for both contract and fit. Yeah, that's just a lot of money, like you said, for a guy that's that shaky at times. So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited to see what Oakland or Sacramento's like. I keep saying Oakland, Sacramento, with that team this year and kind of the environment that's going to be. It'll be really weird, but we'll see how it goes. And they're definitely going to be. I think they're going to make some noise in the AL West this season. We have a few more free agent picks, along with kind of talking about the White Sox and the Tigers. But before we get into that, we're going to take a quick break. All right, we are back from our little break. We're going to be continuing on with our free agent moves. Next up, we're going to be jumping back over to the Mets. And the big one here is going to be Clay Holmes on a 3-year, $38 million deal. Now, this one is actually super interesting because they've already come out and said that they're planning on making Clay Holmes a starting pitcher, which is different than what Clay Holmes has been doing the past couple of years in New York, or I mean, with the Yankees. And so actually, Aram from Just Baseball Show made a really good video about this, and explaining kind of how Clay Holmes' frame, his pitch mix, all that kind of complements him becoming a starter. And I thought it was a really good video, kind of explaining why it does kind of make a little bit of sense. And so for that, I actually really do like the deal. I know we kind of talked about his contract a little bit, about if it was maybe a bit of an overpay, and at the time we didn't really know if he would be a starter. I thought either way, if you kept him in the bullpen or he became a starter, I thought it'd be worth it. But now that he is officially going to be a starter, I think this is a really good deal. I think the fit is perfect. I think Clay is going to be really good there. I'd give it like a 9. And I'd say the same for the contract. I have no problems with the contract, especially now knowing he's going to be a starter. This is a much, much cheaper deal than we're seeing for a lot of other starting pitchers. And if Clay Holmes does convert really well over to a starter, then this deal just becomes that much better. And at the same time, I think if it doesn't work and you move him back over to the bullpen, I think it's still really good because then you have Clay Holmes probably as your setup, and then you have Edwin Diaz coming in the ninth to close it. So all around, I think this is a really good deal for the Mets. I think I'd give the contract like a 9. I really genuinely have no issues with it. I think Parker might be on the opposite end of from me just a little bit, but I'll give it to you for that.
yeah, I kind of see this two ways. So let's say he stays in the bullpen and he puts up similar numbers. 12.6 mil is per year for 3 years, especially for usually these guys get 1 or 2 years, especially going into age 32 year seasons. But I think in terms of that, I think it's an overpay. Um the fit 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I mean, he's a decent pitcher, and I mean, it's always good to have extra arms, especially um, going in with all these injuries and everything. So now looking at the other side of things, let's say he becomes a starting pitcher. I really don't have that much hope in that working out, just based off the fact that he's going into his age 32 season, as I said, and the past 3 years, 2022, 63.2 innings, 2023, 63 innings, and then last year, 63. So he's pitched 63 innings pretty much on the nose the past 3 years. And to go from that to a starting pitcher that would likely pitch 130 at the very least. That's usually what starters at the bottom of the barrel, in terms of innings would pitch. I don't really see that as being that possible. I really believe that he kind of advertised himself as a starting pitcher just to get the money, and it worked out for him. So in that way, overall, I think the contract is like a 5 out of 10, maybe 4 out of 10. I 100% could be eating my words halfway through next season, and he could be, or at the end of next season, I guess. We'll see how his longevity holds up. But yeah, he could be good, but I don't think this is going to work out for the Mets.
I will throw out, so in the minors, he actually did pitch like a starting pitcher in 20, so I mean 2013, it's a while ago now, but he had 119 innings in 2013. 2016 he threw 136. 2017 he had 112, and 2018 he had 101. So I think there is some experience taking that load of innings. I think you're still right to some extent though. And the other thing that worries me is the Mets are a little thin at starting pitcher, and to put your eggs in the Clay Holmes basket is a little risky here because if you're he's converting to starting pitcher, and if you don't get the longevity, like what's left? It's like Kodai Sengai, who, struggled with injuries last year, and then you're losing Manaya probably. You lost Severino, and it's like, okay, I mean, I get a little nervous about that, especially too. And then you're signing a non-starting pitcher, hoping that he converts well over to that. I definitely do see the risk with that. I think I'm more leaning towards the side of I think it will be good. It would be helpful if the Mets got some, I would say, cemented starting pitchers, guys who are going to give you innings. I think that is definitely a big need for the Mets as of right now. And then the other Mets signing we threw in here was just Griffin Canning on a small little 1-year deal. Griffin Canning was moved around quite a bit this offseason so far, from the Angels to the Brave, yeah, Braves, right? Yeah, Braves
Mhm.
for Jorge Soler. The Braves then non-tendered him, and then he just got picked up by the Mets. This could be a guy they also try and move to starting pitcher, but he might just sit in the bullpen as well, which I would have no quarrels with. Griffin Canning is a pretty reliable arm, and I do like him quite a bit. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to add on top of that.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with this with how cheap you got him for. He can learn from some of the guys there, and sometimes a change of atmosphere or scenery can help a guy a lot. So nothing to complain with that. Real quick before we move on to the Tigers and the White Sox, I'm gonna give an argument towards your side of the Clay Holmes kind of like switching to starting pitching type thing. So this is like best case scenario. So I don't think it can get much better than this. And this one actually hurt the Mets. So in 2022, as you know, Seth Lugo was a bullpen arm. He pitched, this was his age 32 season, so he was even a year older than Clay Holmes is this year. So 65 innings with a 3.6 ERA, which that which is even worse than what Clay Holmes posted this year. And then he went from that to his age 33 season. He wanted to switch to a starter, which is what happened. And he had a 3.57 and 146. So if you could get that out of Clay Holmes, that would be amazing. And then this year was the really big progression for Seth Lugo, and he finished second in Cy Young with 206 innings with a 3 ERA. So
Probably
to go
like that's
from
probably the most innings. I feel like there might weren't many guys that touched 200 this year.
no,
Like,
it doesn't, it's not bolded, so it didn't lead the league, but it had to have been within like 3 or 4
yeah,
innings, I would assume.
at least.
And so to go from 2022, age 32 season, only pitching 65 innings, which is similar to Clay Holmes, to now 2 years later only, age 34 season to throw over 200 innings is insane to me. So if Clay can mold himself into anything similar to what Seth Lugo has, and keep his arm healthy, I think that would be massive for them, and that's the upside here. So
100%. All right, so now we're gonna just dive into our two teams, which we haven't talked about yet. A little, I mean, obviously both of our teams have been a little quiet so far. Nothing too crazy or groundbreaking, but I'll give it to Parker for the Tigers, talking about what they're doing thus far.
yeah, so these ratings are gonna be completely different between the two. So fit rating, I said 8 out of 10. The Tigers have always wanted to get a veteran arm and to help out, especially Jackson Joe coming up, and then Reese Olson's still pretty young. Um, I think that's huge to have this guy kind of be a veteran. Alex Cobb, he's been around the league a long time, ever since 2011. So this will be his 14th year. So to pair him with Scooble with kind of like taking the younger guys under his wing would be huge. And he's been a consistent pitcher when he's out there. He's getting older, so the injuries are hitting him a little bit. 3.76 in 2021, 3.73, 3.87, and then this past year 2.76, but he only had three starts. So in the sense of if he's out there, I do think he's going to be a good pitcher. However, he's going into age 37 season, and with those injuries, the contract is 1 year, 15 mil. I said 1 out of 10 for the contract. That's a complete overpay, honestly. And this honestly makes me look at the Shane Bieber and be like, okay, if Shane Bieber is a 6 out of 10 and Shane's getting 10 and then 16 for the player option,
Yeah.
like how is it? This isn't even comparable to that. This is
Yeah.
much, much worse. So
No, I think you're right. The fit is good, and you just need starting pitching in Detroit right
yeah,
now to kind of help Scooble and help the young guys that are coming up. But yeah, you're definitely right with the money. I mean, way, way too much for Alex
yeah.
Cobb. Um, and then are you kind of eyeballing any guys left in free agency that you think the Tigers should go and get, or guys you're hoping they go and get with kind of how everything's played out so far?
In terms of pitching or just in general?
In general, it can be position or pitching, just with what the market has been, what guys have signed, what guys haven't signed, what you might think
Hmm.
might be good for them.
Yeah, looking at the Willie Adames deal, I would have loved that. We both liked that deal. We both gave pretty high ratings, especially for 26 a year. That was the one I was really hoping to get, but it's hard to hang with the bigger clubs like that. And I know the Giants aren't typically like that, but they're still a bigger market team than the Tigers. I really I'm sticking to it. And I know the Tigers need offense, and we've kind of talked about this back and forth, but I do really want Hassan Kim to kind of fill in for the shortstop or wherever we need him, because I feel like he could play infield anywhere. Um, I would love to get him. In terms of starting pitching right now, we it's Skubal, Olson, Cobb, Mize, and Job. I mean, Mize scares me. Cobb still scares me. Job is a rookie. I do think I would love to get another starting pitcher. Whether I would want to go after Flaherty now after getting Cobb, I feel like I would rather go for the hitting. So
Hmm.
I would lean towards more of like a lower level starting pitcher, maybe like Walker Bueller or maybe even more of like a lower level like veteran arm, just for depth. And then hitting, I still feel like we need more, and I'm honestly just setting myself up for disappointment if I want like Walker Bueller, Hassan Kim, and then I add another guy in there because
Yeah.
the Tigers they're probably not going to do that. So I would like another guy in the infield. Obviously, Bregman would be nice, but I think we'd have to pay too much for him. A trade would be huge. I think a trade um would be my would be the most favorable thing for us, especially if we could kind of get rid of Mize. I don't want to get rid of Torque. I still think there's something there. I don't think I want him to be a starter opening day, but I think we should still test him out, especially since he was a lot better in the second half last year. So
Yeah. I mean, was he a number one pick overall?
yeah, so was Mize.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think Mize has had his run, but Torque, I think, and you know it better. I still think there has to be something there, especially with the really good year he had 2 years ago now.
Yeah,
Part of me wants to say you hung on to him, but I do get like wanting to move him at the same time because it was not good at all last year. Should not be spending any time in AAA at this point. Yeah, that's interesting thing to think about. The Tigers, they need to get on their horse now, though. I think, and definitely start getting some guys here outside of
yeah,
Alex Cobb. So now for my White Sox, it's been, I mean, I guess you could say, and I'm not going to call it eventful. It's been quiet off season, but I mean, we weren't expecting much else. So we did already talk about the Austin Slater deal. I don't have much else to say on that. The two other guys they've added is Mike Talkman and Bryce Wilson. Bryce Wilson was like yesterday, and then Talkman was about a week ago now. So Talkman is on a 1 year, less than $2 million, 195, and then Bryce Wilson's on a 1 year, $1.05 million. So getting these guys for really cheap, which I do like a lot. Um, Talkman, I think the fit is probably a good 7. He's going to play in the outfield. It's good depth. He's been in the league for only 4 years. But in his time with Chicago, he definitely had some hot streaks and some cold streaks. He can be a pretty good hitter, but he can also not be the best. And for what we got him at, I think the contract's a 10 out of 10. Like, I mean, I know it's kind of crazy to say that, and it's the White Sox, but like getting him for 1 year, less than $2 million, I don't have any complaints for that. He had a one WAR last year, so I mean, I don't really. It's not you're not expecting him to be a lot, but for what you got him at, I think it's perfect. For Bryce Wilson, I think this is pretty much a pretty clear-cut flip, hopefully, at the deadline. His service time is 4 years, so he's going to have a little bit of control. Maybe he comes out, he has a pretty good season, and he gets, traded at the deadline. I think that's the hope here. But again, they get him for super cheap, 1 year and only literally $1 million. So I have no complaints here either. I think the fit is probably maybe 6 or 7 out of 10 as well. I mean, it's average. It's Bryce Wilson. You're maybe expecting like a low fours ERA, maybe mid fours, but it's another guy you're hoping like a Chris Flexen or a Mike Clevinger where you can just flip him and see what you can get for him at the
Hmm.
deadline. Um, Not much else outside of that, unfortunately, but that's just kind of how it's going to end up being. So yeah, we'll see what else they do here. I'm not expecting them to go out and get any of these big names or be in contention for even like mid-range guys, but these little small deals, they do add up, and I do like what they're doing so far. And we'll also talk about the big trade they made later on, but that is something I think so far that they're navigating this offseason pretty well. I don't think I can complain too much with what the moves they've made so far.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to say something real quick before we move on. Um, in terms of fit, 9 out of 10 for both. Mike Talkman, I think he's gonna be. Obviously he's not like one of the better players, but 100% he could have a great first half and get traded. Same with Bryce Wilson. 10 out of 10 for contract. These are both steals, 2 million and 1 million. I mean, you can't go wrong. I would have liked Bryce Wilson on the Tigers, honestly, as a depth arm because this last year, 404 with a 127 whip, not bad. In 2023, 258 with a 1070 whip. So for him to get $1 million is crazy to me. And then like with Talkman, his defense is also good. He's gonna bring some energy in the outfield too. So
yeah.
I think I think it's super smart, honestly. And we'll get into the Crochet deal with the trade with the White Sox, but their offseason has been fantastic so far.
Yeah, 100%. So moving on to the trades, the first trade we're going to bring up is definitely, I think, one of the biggest ones. This is Kyle Tucker heading over to Chicago in exchange for Isak Paredes, Hayden Wisniewski, and Cam Smith going over to Houston. I guess I'll just start it off. So I think the deal. Yeah, we're gonna do letter grades. I think I said that earlier.
Hmm.
Um, for the Cubs end, I say B minus. And it's not necessarily to discredit Tucker coming here at all. It's more to say, okay, you got Kyle Tucker. What else are you going to go and get? The Cubs have one of the best farm systems in the league. So moving off of Cam Smith, I'm not really opposed against. They keep their top guys here, and you get a superstar in Kyle Tucker. One of the, I think, more underrated players in the league. Very consistent, very good. If as long as he stays healthy, he was hurt a little bit last year. The other downside of the deal is you only get 1 year of Tucker. He'll be a free agent at the end of this upcoming season. And so you kind of have to play with that too. Did you give up too much for 1 year of Kyle Tucker? And that's why I said B minus because if you're going to go and get Kyle Tucker, you also move off of Bellinger. What else are you going to go and do? And we've talked about this. I think Tucker adds something to this team, but he doesn't add enough. I think they need to go out and get more guys. If they're going to try and make a push this year, it can't just be Cal Tucker, especially giving up Isak Paredes as well. Isak Paredes could be the move to make room for Matt Shaw, who's coming up from the minors, one of the top prospects in the league. But then you run the risk of, your prospects not being ready enough to make this big push. I feel like they're going to need something else. They already did sign Matthew Boyd as well to their starting pitching core. The bullpen still worries me a lot here. They need to do more, I think, and that's why I give it a B minus. For the Astros, I said an A minus. Astros are kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of farm system. Cam Smith is probably going to slide in as their top prospect and be far and away their top prospect. And then Isaac Paredes, I think, is a really good addition as well. I think he's going to hit a lot of home runs at, I guess it's not Minute Maid Park anymore. I don't even remember what the new name is, but um, I think he'll fit that stadium pretty well, and hopefully they're going to find some of that old Paredes that has kind of been lost the past season. And then Hayden Wisniewski is also, I mean, I don't have much to say about him. He's a pretty solid arm. I think he'll fit in nicely. You know what you're going to get out of him. So I gave the Astros an A minus, like I said. I do like the deal for them, and for now I like the deal for the Cubs, but I think there needs to be more on top of it. So
Yeah, so I'm gonna say all the things that worried you for the Cubs, I worry about times 10, like amplified. I think this is absolutely terrible. I'm gonna give the Cubs an F, honestly. 1 year for Kyle Tucker. And like you said, they if they're doing this, they have to do a lot more. Like this means that they have to go and like really go all out because this is more of a deal that I can see for a team that's like one player away, and the Cubs are a lot more than one player away. I think you would agree with that.
well,
Um,
yeah, more than one player, but I guess looking at a kind of lineup here, it'd be I guess Tucker would probably play in right, and then you have PCA in center, say a DH, probably Miguel Amaya catching for now, and then it's Bush at first. You still have Nico and Dansby playing second and short.
mhm.
Third is probably going to be Matt Shaw. Um, yeah,
That's mid to me. That's not good.
it's not great. And then for the rotation, it's Shota, Jamison Tyone, Boyd, and
Yeah.
Justin Steele probably. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It does concern me. And in the NL Central, I think the Brewers are still the team to worry about here. And you could even see like like a Reds kind of make a big jump here. So yeah, but I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I absolutely hate this. And then Astros, I said A minus A. Paredes, the reason why he was so bad with the Cubs is it was a pitcher's ballpark, and as you know, Paredes, like if you, it's kind of crazy. You look at his stats, his home run, like look at his home run numbers, like the heat maps or whatever they're
Yeah,
called.
on like the park
Every
overlay.
Yeah, everyone is within like a 30 feet span in left field. So I think that'll fit perfectly with Houston because their left field, the wall is pretty high, but it's very shallow. So I think that's a perfect fit for them. I don't think the Cubs should have ever got Paredes to begin with because of that. But now, yeah, Paredes going to Houston with control too. That's huge. And then yeah, Wesneski just a little like throw in there, but then Cam Smith, the top 100 prospect, is also massive. And the fact that they did all this for Tucker is it honestly it blows my mind. So
So so you're saying there's no value in getting Tucker now because we're assuming they're not going to get him next year. So despite the play you're getting in Tucker, it's pretty much null and void because it's only 1 year of Tucker and the team around him isn't good enough to support that pretty much.
yeah, this doesn't push them over the edge. And even if it was a team that I kind of saw it pushing over the edge, I would still be kind of hesitant, but I'd be much more accepting of this. Now if they go out and get like Corbin Burns and they get like Bregman and like get a couple more guys, I'll be like, okay, then they're going all out. Like this could turn out really good. Um, but yeah, I think they're so far away, and yeah, I don't think it's smart at all. Like
Yeah, and
they don't win this year and then they lose. It's yeah,
Tucker's definitely in line for a huge contract now after the Soto signing too at the end of this upcoming season. And I mean, I would doubt the Cubs would get him after that. He's gonna go to the open market to see what he can get, obviously. Maybe there's a world the Cubs are planning on signing him to a big deal after this season.
yeah.
I
It's
it's kind of like typical Cubs. You don't really see him do that, so it's tough to say.
yeah. That's another reason why I feel like they did it. They feel like obviously they're going to increase their odds, especially if you like Chicago. But with guys that are that high caliber that everybody's going to be after, it's a lot harder to kind of keep them to stick around. And then lastly, before we move on, but he only played 78 games. He had injuries the first like half of the season, so like that's also another worry of mine. If he plays half the season next year,
It's like,
like
what's even the point?
yeah,
And then yeah, you move Bellinger to kind of make I mean I think it's to make we'll talk about this trade later, but it's to make room for Tucker and also get off his contract. So it's kind of like a give and a take at the same time too. So we'll see how that plays out. It's definitely going to be one of the more interesting stories heading into next season. But moving on, we're going to dive into the Garrett Crochet trade to the Red Sox. Personally, I think this has been one of the most even trades that has been happening so far. I did make a video about this on our Instagram, kind of talking about it. Um, from a White Sox perspective, I'm very happy with the haul that they got. I genuinely don't have more complaints. I've heard maybe they could have gotten more. I don't necessarily think so. I think this is honestly a pretty generous get for the White Sox. I get Crochet. He has 2 years left of control. But for the one season he had, it was really good, and the underlying numbers I've heard are all really great as well. Um, I think what the Red Sox gave us is even a little generous, to be honest. So just to kind of dive into it, it's going to be Kyle Teal, who's a catcher, Braden Montgomery, who was Boston's number one pick last year, and Teal was the number one pick 2 years ago. And then they also threw in Chase Meidroth and Wilkerman Gonzalez. So these are all now top 15 guys in the White Sox organization. Kyle Teal and Braden Montgomery are both kind of Teal is definitely a top 50 prospect. Montgomery is probably a consensus fringe top 50 prospect. So getting two top 100 guys and adding two more guys on top of that, I couldn't be happier to be honest with you. Converting Crochet to a starter and getting this for him, I think is awesome. Chase Meidroth is a guy who's going to play this year probably at second base, so already getting some big league experience for him, I think is awesome. Wilkerman Gonzalez is a righty. He has some stuff to work on, but getting a righty pitcher here in our system is great with all the lefties that we do have. Kyle Teal's a bit of an interesting one here because we do have Edgar Caro coming up. They're both on a very similar track and both kind of at the same point. So I'm not too sure how that's going to work out. There
Mhm.
could be a world where one of them DHs and the other one is behind the dish, because Edgar Carroll has really flown up the prospect rankings and he had a really great season last year. So you add Kyle Teal into that fold and it kind of makes it interesting. But I'm not going to complain with getting a Kyle Teal, despite having, another catcher here, because catcher is another kind of thin area where there's not just an abundance of talent you see. And then Braden Montgomery, one of the best hitting prospects in the league. The potential here is mind blowing. Really excited to see how he develops, and I think he could be a top 10 prospect in the next couple of years for sure, just based on how he develops. So for the White Sox, I have an A minus. You move off Crochet, I want them to do that. You address hitting concerns in your organization, and then you get two more other guys, which I think it's really good. And then the Red Sox, I think long term it might favor the White Sox, but for now, they get their ace. They get a really good lefty. They get Crochet. I have no complaints for the Red Sox. They don't also give up some of their top prospects here. They are also a very, very rich farm system, which I did talk about in my video. And I think they didn't give up too much here, but they gave up enough to go and get their guy. And I think both ways, it's just perfect. I really, really do like this move. So.
Yeah. Red Sox, I agree. I like it for both teams. Red Sox, I said B plus. Like you said, they got a lot of prospects to kind of work with trades, and to get him for more than 1 year is also huge. Especially with like how much the Yankees are doing and how much we assume the Orioles and potentially the Blue Jays. They've been in talks for certain guys, so I think it's been great for them. White Sox, I said A plus, dude. I think this is the best trade so far that a team's made. To get two, I guess 154, top 55 prospects, to get two of those, and then two more guys that have some upside, I think that's absolutely huge. And honestly, last offseason, or not offseason, but last All-Star break or like trade deadline time, I was kind of frustrated with the White Sox for not trading Crochet. I thought they should have got rid of him. But I see the vision now because it ended up working out really good for them. So does that make it six top 100, which is the most?
I don't think it's.
I think it's either tied for the most or the most.
Yeah, yeah. I think the Cubs have six still. They might have six, maybe six or five.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's six. And I think all of them are top 70 also.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, and a lot of White Sox fans are kind of like it's the same thing we've seen before.
Mhm.
They had something similar a few years ago, and obviously we know how that went. But you're starting to see something happen here. I get really excited about our future rotation. I think that's what gets me amped up the most. Um, but like you said, adding talent and adding like quantity of prospects in this deal,
Mhm.
it's just perfect.
Yeah.
I don't think I could be any happier. I was not expecting this much, to be honest. And I just don't think I can complain with it at all. So yeah, I definitely.
Now, real quick before we move on, kind of going along with what you said with the Kyle Teal and then Edgar Quero. Um, so yeah, they're both catchers. One could play DH, but I also kind of see this as so their timeline is still like a little down the road. Isn't Edgar is his this year though, his ETA?
I think it's going to be him. He'll be up this year for sure. I think Colson Montgomery will be up this year. Mydroth will be up this year. And then we'll see about Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith. But Caro, to answer your question, definitely will be up this year at some point.
So I kind of see this as the White Sox not planning on having Kyle Teal play in a White Sox uniform, like in the majors. I
Mm.
think this is kind of like building capital for when they're good because his ETA is further down the line. I think this is smart. I think they're going to hold on to Kyle Teal, have him kind of ball in the minors as he's been doing. And then once their window opens, I think they're going to trade him away to get like a developed guy or like a guy that's already been in the league. So
Yeah,
that's kind of what I is going to
when the
happen.
window's in 2030, we'll move him off.
No, no, no. Within like 3 years, I
Yeah,
think he'll be
yeah.
a great trade piece.
Yeah, that's something I think, yeah, definitely something to think about. I could see that being definitely a thing because Caro's been with the team longer, been in the organization
Mhm.
longer, and I think he should be the kind of I think he should be the opening day catcher to be honest with you,
Yeah.
or even DH, whatever. I think he needs to be with the team. Because the White Sox have nothing to lose this year, we all know that. Bring the
Mhm.
young guys up, let them play. Obviously get them the experience. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I definitely think that could be something. Because then you're kind of going to run if you do move Teal, that could be on the same timeline with the Braden Montgomery coming up too. So that
Right.
really is enticing to me. So yeah, that's a good point. All right, so we'll move on now, though. So the next one we're going to talk about, going back to the Cubs, this is Bellinger to the Yankees. I'll let you get us started on this one.
Okay. Yeah, so I remember texting you immediately after this happened, and I was completely on the Yankees side, um, purely because I didn't really know how much Bellinger was getting paid. All I saw was Bellinger for Petit, and when you see that, it makes it seem like it was completely lopsided in favor of the Yankees. But then once I looked at the contract,
It's
I'm starting,
huge
yeah,
contract.
I'm starting now to side with the Cubs. So the contract was 2 years, 52.5 left for Cody Bellinger. And that is 27.5 this year. And then it's a player option in 2026 for 25 mil. Um, and I guess this was for Poteet, Cody Poteet, the Cubs got, who's decent. He was really just kind of a throw-in for this. It was more so just to get rid of the contract for the Cubs. But for the Yankees to take on that contract, I don't think it's very smart. I know they got 5 mil, but paying 22.5 mil, and then if he plays bad, he's probably gonna take the player contract next year. So they're gonna end up be paying him
There's
what is it, 47.5 mil?
so there's wait, there'd be 47 for the remaining 2 years, is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then so
Player.
there was an opt out at the end of this season, and there's an opt out at the end of this upcoming season, like a player opt out.
Yeah.
So it's opt out and then a player option as well. So yeah, you could only play 1 year in New York if you wanted to. Um, yeah, I totally agree with you. I looked it up before this, and I did not also realize how much he was making or what that contract was. Good on the Cubs for moving off of it. Hopefully, clear up some cap to go and get some more guys. I don't know if I'm so necessarily against it for the Yankees here because they needed outfield, they needed a
Mhm.
good hitter, and they get it with Cody Bellinger. It'd be awesome to see Cody return to kind of his peak form in New York. I think that'd be really fun to watch. But now it's probably Cody in center, I would take it, and then Judge moves over to right, and then Dominguez in left. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know Soto is obviously the ideal, but that doesn't get much better than that, to be honest with you. And I think he'll fit in perfectly with the short porch and right as well. Hopefully, going to pull a lot of
Yeah.
home runs out there. I think it works for both ends here. I mean, the Cubs needed to move off this contract and they did. Yankees needed an outfielder and they probably have a little more money to spend. So I think it's pretty equal. Did you give out your grades for it yet?
So I said, um, while I do think it's smarter for the Cubs, I still said a B for the Yanks just because, like what you said, the short perch is really nice. They have the money to spend, so might as well spend it. And then for the Cubs, like I said B plus for them. Just smart to move on from his contract and look for other guys. Yeah,
Yeah, I said A plus for Yankees. Like I said, I really like it. Maybe that's a little too generous, but I don't have any issues with this. You take the money you're going to spend on Soto and go get a center fielder that's really good. Cubs, I said A
yeah,
minus. Losing Bellinger obviously does suck a little bit. But again, you move off that kind of bad, I don't want to say bad contract, that contract that is not very favorable for the Cubs,
yeah.
and hopefully clear up some capital, like I said, to go and get some other guys. So. All right, we're getting to the end here, so we're gonna go over to Cleveland. We have Andres Jimenez being traded to Toronto here. The full deal was Jimenez and Nick Sandelin, who's a bullpen arm for Spencer Horwitz from Toronto. Cleveland then went and turned Horwitz, gave him to the Pirates in exchange for Luis Ortiz and a couple prospects. I also made a video about this on our Instagram, all of our social medias. So. I'll kind of just summarize what I said in that really quickly, but the way Jimenez's contract was set up or is set up is it was pretty cheap the first couple of years, but by 2027 he's going to be making around $23 million. And what I was kind of talking about was he had a breakout season in 22, I think, and then that's when they signed his extension in 23. And the bat has been drastically uh, declining since then. 630 OPS this season. I don't care how good your defense is, you can't have that.
Yeah.
So for the Guardians to move off this contract, I know they're losing the defense, whatever. They dump it off to Toronto and they get Spencer Horwitz in return, which at the time I thought was like, okay, wow, this is really good. They might be able to move off Josh Naylor now because they have a bit of a logjam there. They probably don't want to pay him either this year or sign him when he hits free agency next season. So I was like, wow, this is going to be perfect for the Guardians. But they do go and move Horwitz to Pittsburgh. And in return, they get Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz, we have brought up before on the podcast, a Pirates pitcher who was like a bullpen guy, and then he was a kind of long relief guy, and then he was just a starting pitcher last year. Really, really good. I do like it for a lot. They get another starting pitcher here, which I think they need more than more guys at first base, more power hitters. So all in all, for the whole chain of events that Guardians took, I think I would give it an A plus. Kind of factoring the Toronto move and the Pittsburgh move. I have no complaints here. For Toronto, I said a B. I do like getting Nick Sandelin a lot. That helps a bunch, but I just don't see the big benefit to getting Jimenez here. Toronto already is one of the best defensive teams in the league. So what are you trading for? You're trading for a bad hitter who's got really good
Yeah.
defense. Like I just and
Yep.
you're going to be paying him so much. I don't see the point necessarily. Maybe this is accompanied again by a Bregman move or getting another big free agent here, but I don't know. You give away one of your best young hitters here, and you get a guy who can't seem to figure it out with the bat. So maybe he will go back to 2022 Jimenez, and in that case, it will work out a lot better for them. But for right now, I think I'm going to say like a C plus. I'm not a big fan
Yeah,
of it.
good. I like that. Change it.
What
Well,
like
originally you said B. I think you were being a little too generous.
Yeah, I think I would even I mean C plus might even be too kind. Like a C would be
Yeah.
okay, just average. Like it's fine, but like what do you really get done here? Um and then I mean for the Pirates getting Horwitz and giving up Ortiz, I think that's great. I mean I'd give it an A. You have Skeens and what are the Mitch
Jones and
right?
then Keller.
Yeah, Jones and Mitch Keller. So Ortiz might not fit the bill there for right now. You move off of him, you get a good hitter at first base,
Mhm.
which he'll play next year. So
Yeah.
a very interesting sequence here, but I'll give it over to you for your thoughts.
Yeah. I pretty much had the exact same thing. I said C plus Toronto. Um, like you said with Jimenez, they're gonna be paying him a lot of money. Sandlin's a good addition there, but how much is he really gonna bring to the team? You don't know. 375 with a pretty high whip. Um, their window's closing and they're gonna be paying Jimenez down the line. Um, and giving up Horwitz when right now they kind of need that like glimmer of hope in the future because it's starting to look really bleak for them. So holding on to like the few guys they have for the future, I think would be important. And they just got rid of one of them, who's I think he's going to be pretty good. So for the Guardians, I also said A plus. I think that was super smart. Take Horwitz, flip him for Ortiz because they really need the starting pitching. And then also for Pirates, I said A plus because literally perfect for them. They got those three. They got their three horsemen um in Keller, Jones, and Skeens, which is great. So they have the pitching and they really need the hitting. So trade Ortiz for a hitter that down the line will likely be pretty good. So overall, Pirates did a great job, Guardians did a great job, but Toronto, I don't know what they're doing here. Not too good.
Yeah, we obviously know Toronto's going to be spenders, just because they were, in on Juan Soto.
Mhm.
And now getting Jimenez, I think they probably will still sign a few more big guys. I think Bregman's going to end up there, but we'll see how it plays out for them. It's just so tough for me to buy into like them buying because it's like the division is unfavorable, this league is unfavorable, the team is not favorable at all, I think either. So I don't. We'll see. We've talked about that a lot already, but we'll see how that all ends up, and you really aren't gonna know until the start of next season.
Do
So
you do you think there's a chance? I know they were in on Soto, and that would make it seem like they're spending. But do you think there's a chance that now with all the moves that like the Orioles, Yankees, and the Red Sox are doing, I think there's a chance they just bow out and say, okay, we're not spending anymore. We're gonna take a different route.
no.
No?
Well, it just from any previous pattern, there's no part of me that believes that that's what they're gonna do. Do I think they should? Yes, but there's no way with what they've been doing and the moves they're making, they're clearly so heavy in on this year that I just don't think they care what other teams are doing. Like, and I totally get what you're saying with like, okay, Red Sox, Orioles, Yankees, they're all making moves, they're all pushing, and you're already in probably one of the toughest divisions in the league. And you're not, I don't think you're ready to be a top end team, but you're
Yeah.
still acting like you are. It's just stupid, but
Yeah.
I think they have so much tunnel vision that it's like they're not going to steer away from this at all.
I think it's pride. I think they got too much pride in that their
Maybe.
direction is not it's not in a good way right now.
And I think they recognize it's kind of like they're just scraping at the bottom of the barrel trying to get anything because they know Vladdy and Bo are free agents at the end of the season. They're probably not, who knows if they're going to want to stay there. It's hard to say, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting how it plays out. All right, so next up, and our second to last one, we have Devin Williams to the Yankees, move here from the Brewers. So the full package here is Devin Williams going to New York, and then the Yankees give Nestor Cortez and Caleb Durbin back over to Milwaukee. I'll kind of talk about Durbin here. We kind of know Cortez a bit, and then I'll give it to you for your thoughts. But
Okay.
so Caleb Durbin, he's kind of a ultra utility man. He plays second base for the most part. I think he'll play. So with the kind of whole Willie Adames leaves for Milwaukee, I think there's a real reason, like a good chance he plays second opening day. If you move third base is kind of the hole right now because I think the plan is Ortiz plays short and then you have Caleb Durbin at second. So third base, I've heard Sal Frelick might move over there, or you call up Tyler Black as again, and he can fit in at third, and you kind of rotate that out. I don't see the Brewers going and signing a third baseman. I just don't think that's really what the Brewers do. Maybe. But Caleb Durbin, back to him. He stood out in the Arizona Fall League this year. I don't know if you saw this, but I think he stole like 30 bags in like 30 games or something like that.
Really?
He had really good numbers as well, hitting wise, can play all over the field. He seems like a Brewers player to me. Like he'll steal bases. He's kind of a utility man, can play all over. Like I think the fit is absolutely perfect here. But yeah, so that's a little bit on him. I'll let you kind of give what you think.
Yeah. I love this for both teams. I did a little research on Durbin too. 867 OPS in AAA with 10 home runs, 60 RBIs, and then like you said, the fall league was amazing. For the Brewers, so they need the hitting as always, especially like you said with Adames going out. And then Cortez, Milwaukee's a little bare on starting pitching right now, and they're also a pitching factory, so they could turn him back into his peak Cortez. So I think that's huge. I said A Milwaukee, and then I also said A for the Yankees. They really need the high leverage bullpen arm, and Devin Williams is almost guaranteed to be their closer opening day. He's amazing. And the Yankees, the way I kind of see it is, yes, they're giving up Durbin, who's a good prospect that's almost ready. they're looking to really spend, and they're not too worried about their prospects right now. They're looking to fill that with money.
Yep.
So overall, just great on both sides.
Yeah. My grades, I had A minus, A minus. Echoing what you said, I think it's a good deal for both sides. Yankees had a starting pitcher, and I think Nestor could thrive in Milwaukee. And like I said, I like Caleb Durbin. The fit in Milwaukee works really well, and the Yankees get a really good closer. I think obviously, I think his stats are a bit overshadowed by what happened in the postseason last year, but he still has a sub 2 career ERA, I think, in the regular season, which is just insane. That changeup is one of the best, if not the best, in the league. And he'll slide in nicely. I think Weaver will probably slide into the eighth spot and then, or the eighth inning, and then Devin will be the ninth inning closer. So really good for the Yankees, but also really good for the Brewers. We kind of knew they were thinking about trading him, and that's ended up what happening. So. All right, last and final trade. I don't have much on this one. This is Jake Berger to the Rangers. Um, I I I remember you brought this up in our pick'em about Berger being traded, and I was pretty against it, and I still am. I hate this move for the Marlins. I see no reason in moving Berger. He still has a lot of control. He's a really good
Yeah.
player.
Uh-huh.
And the reports I've heard also coming out of the clubhouse is he's a clubhouse guy. He's one of the favorites. He's also a fan favorite. He's going to be a fan favorite anywhere he goes, to be honest, just because it's,
Yeah.
I mean, his personality, the name, everything. I didn't see a point in moving off of him here. Now, again, I don't know much about the prospect return they got here. None of the names stood out to me, and I can't offer much on that. I just I didn't see a point in moving him, so I gave the Marlins a D. The Rangers I gave an A. Berger has been a consistent power hitter. He had a really good season last year. You get him with control. I love this move for the Rangers, so I don't have much else to say outside of that.
This was maybe other because it's so much different than the Tucker trade, but in terms of um like not like a 1 year deal, but like a guy with control getting traded, I think this is the most lopsided deal. I said A plus Rangers and I said F Miami, honestly.
Yeah,
Miami, three top 30 prospects for their system. That's just for their system. So no top 100 prospects. For a guy that he's not a free agent until 2029, so a ton of control does not make any sense to me. And it honestly makes me feel bad because if the Tigers could have given up three top 30 prospects,
yeah,
what is that? 4 years of Jake Berger, 3 years?
that's pretty.
Why not?
Yeah,
And
4 years of Jake Berger sounds super enticing, and obviously Rangers didn't have to give up much for that. So yeah,
um, just completely lopsided. I think it's an absolute steal for Texas. So
absolutely, absolutely. Rangers having a good offseason so far. I like what they're doing. I think they're definitely could make another good push here, um, like they did 2 years ago. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. We'll hopefully get back to our kind of division free agency offseason kind of moves. It's going to look a little different now because teams are actually starting to do stuff. But hopefully we'll get back to that. We have a few more left to wrap up. But yeah, let us know what you guys think about all of our kind of what we said for each move, trades, free agency. Let us know in the comments down below. And be sure to keep up with us on social media for the free agency pickup, but also just for more videos and content like this. But that's going to do it for this week. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.
thank you.